I'm Objectively Dan, and you are watching The Atheist Edge.
Hey, thanks so much to our guest, Jim Hall. Jim Hall is a is a YouTuber. He's actually Master Sergeant Jim Hall from the Marine Corps. He's retired. He's a North Texas atheist activist and a video producer. And he's currently host of the Atheist Edge channel on YouTube. He's also a former member of the Metroplex Atheist Board of Directors, so he knows a little bit about local leadership as well. He's also a member of Midlothian Freethought and a charter member of the Atheist and Christian Book Club, which is based in Arlington, Texas. And he's been invited to speak at a number of local organizations such as the Humanists of Fort Worth, the DFW Freedom from Religion Foundation, and he's also done a bunch of sort of Ask an Atheist events at local churches as well. And he's been on Spanish language television, Telemundo and Estrella. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the two books that he has written and published. The first one being Most People Believe in God, Can They All Be Wrong? And the second one being Pulling Back the Green Curtain. 666, I'm sure that's a weird coincidental number, 666 things your religious leaders never taught you. And it's the second book, the Green Curtain book, that I'd like to talk to Jim about primarily at this point, because this has been the focus of kind of an interesting project over this past year. And Jim, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about why this project even happened in the first place. What was the thing that kicked us off? Because this is not something that a normal person would just sort of haphazardly decide to do. Oh, let's go through 666 claims. Let's get, however many dozens of people to record videos and put them all together over the course of more than a year. Why did you do this, Jim?
Hi, it's good to be here, guys. Let's see. We do series is on the show, and I thought this was just going to be a series like any other. And I thought 666 things. I was going to get maybe a dozen people to help me out, and it was going to go quick, and it didn't go quick. It turned into 89 separate episodes, and there's 11 more. They're all produced now. There's 11 more yet to premiere, but most of them are on the Atheist Edge YouTube now. You go to the playlist and find the 666 things. It's a separate playlist. I started it in, November 28th last year. So it's been, I don't know, however many months, and it's still going. I realized about a month in that I bit off more than I could chew. And I said, the Marine in me, I'm not retreating from this. We're just going to keep going. And it turned into 64 collaborators. And yeah, I'd like to just shout out, maybe, I think I got 4 or 5 here. There's some, I got about 10 here. There's the big names that I got, and I was very lucky to get them, which was a huge boost to the series. Aaron Raw, Dr. David Madison, Matt Dillahunty, Truth Surge, old pioneer in atheist YouTubing. So a lot of big names. What I'm really excited about is that I got a bunch of lesser known, basically unknown YouTubers that were just getting their start. Maya Atkinson, Tobin Templeton, Serenus Edmonds, and Esther. She goes by the African Humanist, and there's so many more. But who was it when I was first getting started? It was Thomas Westbrook, Holy Kool-Aid. He said, "A rising tide raises all the boats," and I hold to that. I've been living by that. That when you help boost the smaller channels and the bigger, and everyone helps everyone. There's in the atheist YouTube community, you don't see the competition isn't even a word. We're all helping each other. And compared to the theist channels out there, we're tiny. So the more the merrier. Come on, get in. If any of you are watching this right now or thinking about, if you got an idea like this book series, I just decided to turn this book into a video series. The next series is going to be, I'm right in the middle of online critical thinking course, Critical Thinking in the 21st Century. It's a month long. At the end of that, I'm going to do a little 3-part review of my time in this course, and all the Bayesian theory and all the math that I was trying to avoid and getting smacked in the face with it. And then after that, we're going to be researching parallels between the book of Jonah in the Old Testament with the Argonautica, which is an older kind of Greek style epic. And there's a lot of parallels there. And it's kind of to show that whoever wrote Jonah pretty much plagiarized the hell out of it, right? So, I mean, we're always thinking of different ideas, and I crowdsource it a lot. I'll give like 5 things. Hey, what would you guys like to see? You want me to talk about current events? You want to do, interviews with believers? So I'll give the fans, which at this point we got 8,000 followers on YouTube, about 2,000 on Facebook, and 1,000 or so on Twitter. So a little over 10,000. So you get a nice, healthy amount of people contributing to what they want to see next, and you listen to that.
Interesting. And the parameters for this project, pretty much for the beginning, it was focused on. So you've got this book, right? You've got this Behind the Green Curtain, where you basically you list out all these different either facts or things that are implied from the common interpretations of different scriptures, not just from Christianity, but Judaism, Islam, Mormonism, Scientology, a whole bunch of them. But you had this whole big long list, and you got some pushback from a Christian apologist at some point. And what was that? How did that happen? How did that sort of come about?
He did my first book, a critical review of my first book. My first book's only maybe 160 pages long. His book review, I crunched the numbers. His word count in his review is longer than the actual book itself. I'm not going to even say his name. You can if you want, Zach, but I'll just say it. Nick Peters. He's Deeper Water Ministries. You can go and check out, and he just lays waste to both books. And that's okay. And a lot of it, of course, I will stand by. But some of it, and Zach, I can hand this off to you, because you, among many, found obvious, despite my honest attempts at research on this book, I got a lot of things wrong. And Zach found a bunch. And Richard Carrier found a bunch. And some took the time to actually to write up well-scripted replies to this, why it's wrong, why it's not quite right, and here's the real. And I put that in the video series too. It shows people that I'm willing to admit I'm wrong. B, I learned something new, and maybe you will too.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And that's really what I found so fascinating about it. And yeah, I think it was Nick Peters. I did look up some of the criticisms that he had. And for those of you that don't know him, Nick Peters is probably not a household name in terms of Christian apologetics, but weirdly enough, his father-in-law is Mike Licona, who is a bit more of a household name in Christian apologetics. And it's really interesting to me because there's a little bit of irony because for those of you who don't know, maybe the apologetic community, Mike Licona was himself the subject of quite a lot of criticism from other Christian apologists because he specifically, so there's a passage in the Gospel according to Matthew where it's after the crucifixion of Jesus, and there's this earthquake and all the graves get opened up, and according to the story, the graves open up, and the people who were buried in the graves, the saints, presumably the holy people that existed prior to that, who had been buried, they stepped out of their graves and walked around the city of Jerusalem and were seen by many people, right? So some people make fun of this as like the Walking Dead, essentially. You've got, what are they? Are they actually resurrected? Are they reanimated? Are they zombies? Do they walk out with their skin and flesh still sort of sloughing off of them, and they're horrific, monstrous creatures? Don't know. But it's in the story, it's in the gospel that this happened. And Mike Licona is not the only person to have ever pointed this out, that this is probably not meant to be literal. But he is unique among Christian apologists who tend to be much more fundamentalist and tend to be much more inerrantist. And sort of famously, Norman Geisler, who is an inerrantist, called him out when Licona pointed out that, this probably isn't true, or this probably is not meant to be taken as a literal thing that happened. It's probably meant to be some metaphor, some literary device. So Norman Geisler kind of sent him to hell. and I think also got him fired from his job. He had some sort of a seminary job at some point that he lost because the seminary he was at was fundamentalist. And so Norman Geisler pulled some strings and got him fired. And Licona is now on faculty at the University of Houston, I believe, which has an apologetics program. But it's funny to me that Licona went through this, process of pointing out something that's wrong that preachers and other apologists talk about, and he says, "No, this is wrong. You've got this wrong." And his son-in-law, who should have learned this lesson, better than anybody, comes and criticizes you for pointing out similar sorts of things. Some of the criticisms that Nick had, I think, were fair, but a lot of them weren't. And so I found some of the times, at least initially, when you had submitted some items for me to cover, I found myself wanting to sort of recharacterize some of the things that you had said, Jim, but also some of the things that Nick was saying, because he was criticizing you, and I thought criticizing you inappropriately, or doing so with with a specific axe to grind. So it's interesting that that's sort of where this impetus came from initially, but you really rolled with it, and I think it's admirable that you took that criticism and said, you know what, fine, let's look at these claims that I've made. Let's look at this list, because if there's anything that is sort of central to the idea of being a free thinker, it's all right. There's claims that you make. Let's examine them and let's re-examine them, because maybe we learn something later that changes what our opinion might be, or changes what we might be able to conclude. Do you find that has been that has sort of increased your appreciation for the book itself, and just the process as well of engaging with apologists and criticizing Christianity and other religions?
Yeah. I've always held to you can objectively measure how open-minded you are, and let me explain. Think about how many times you've changed big things. I'm not talking belief systems, not that big, but I'll tell you, I've changed my mind on pretty major, what I consider major issues, 5 or 6 times in just the last calendar year. If you can count those and you can label them, this is what I've gotten wrong. And these are 5. I'm not even talking about the book. I got a lot wrong in the book. But for instance, if you guys know, the Quirinius was supposed to be governor of Syria around the time Jesus was born. King Herod was supposed to have been ruler of Judea around that time. They should have been ruling concordantly. Yeah. So there's a 6-year to a 10-year date gap where Herod died and Quirinius hadn't yet become governor of Syria. So I listed that as a contradiction. A friend of mine, Brady Blevins, he's one of the co-creators of the Atheist and Christian Book Club over there in Arlington, and he's the dean of Arlington Baptist University, I think. He sat me down. He showed me actual photographic archaeological records of the little tiny steles written where Quirinius might have been a co-legate of Galatia. Is that right, Zach? Which can cover Syria, and he showed me. He was kind of stretching, but I was like, okay. I had him in Rome at the time, Herod, his last years. I put Quirinius in Rome. His wife tried to poison him. He punished her. He was hanging around in Rome during that time. But if you're saying he was co-legate of Syria, which makes him governor of Syria at Jesus's birth, I'll give it to you. I'm not going to use that as a Bible contradiction anymore. Things like that. Things like mindful meditation. I used to think it was woo-woo. I thought it was hogwash. And I had someone sit me down and tell me the actual physical and health and mental benefits of mindfulness meditation. And I think it can be useful now. So I'm willing to turn on a dime. With this book, it wasn't that much different. I was already in that mode to begin with. But I can see a lot of people pushing back because I wrote this book. It's got to be, I'm going to stand by it no matter what. And people do that. They're called Christians and they do it with their Bible. And just like Zach was talking about, if the zombie narrative only happens in one of the four gospels and the other three didn't even talk about it, all right, by what process do you say something is literal or metaphorical or allegorical? I mean, I would like to know the process, because if you can apply it to the zombies, you can apply it to the curtain, the temple curtain. You can apply it to the eclipse, the earthquake, everything that happened during the crucifixion and the resurrection. And if you can do it to that, why not do it to the crucifixion itself? Yeah. So
Yeah. So throughout this process, again, 666, that's a lot. That's a lot of things. Of that list, and now that you've gotten them all responded to, and we have a few videos left to come out and to premiere, what do you think of all of those that you put into the original book, which ones are the ones that you think you've changed your mind the most about? And also, which are the ones that just surprised you when you reconsidered them after going through this process?
The first one that comes to mind, unfortunately, there's a lot of really poignant points you made that have changed my mind. But the first one that jumps out at me is, now I try to keep these segments between 2 and 6 minutes long. And there's about 5 to 6, ideally there's 5 to 6 content creators in each little episode, right? Every once in a while, my co-host Courtney and Zachary Moore and a couple others will just get on this roll. And I originally think I got to edit this down to 6 minutes, but it's so good I can't touch it. So some of these episodes are standalone, basically Zachary Moore monologues or David Madison monologues, from time to time, and it's just too good. And it's a lot of this stuff, even though I would write maybe a couple sentences on something, do some cursory research. Some of these content creators would take that and just dig deep into it and say, oh, this is good, or Jim's wrong here, or he's right here, and also check this out. And then they just list so much to go even deeper, and it's great. I love it. The one that jumps out at me is Richard Carrier. It was about 25, 27 minutes. And I thought it was just going to be a quick episode, but it was on, in my book, I talk about, I quote a Pew poll, research poll from 2013 on, I don't even know how to frame this, but basically it seemed a little Islamophobic for him. It seemed like I was making Islamic extremism more predominant within the Islamic community than it really was. And he broke that down for me and showed, first off, why that poll is not exactly accurate. Basically, and of course nowadays, the biggest threat domestically is white supremacy by far. And I think Zach, you and you did a whole segment on that as well. So that was one of the times I changed my mind. Going into this, I was still thinking Islamic extremism is the number one threat to the United States, which that is not the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. So much. I reiterate this because I think it's over 10 years later. It's 20 years later, and people are starting to forget this, but the new atheism, right? The phenomenon that took place in the mid-aughts with Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, Hitchens, all those, the thing that made them popular, and then the reason why their books were published, is because everyone was reacting to 9/11, right? And I can even remember myself. So when 9/11 happened, I was still mostly a Christian. But I remember very clearly on that day, later that evening, sort of reflecting, and I was talking with a friend of mine, and I said, well, the one thing, you say what you will about whoever perpetrated this, because it was sort of coming to light that it was probably Muslim terrorists that had done it at that point. People had pegged Al-Qaeda pretty quickly, I think. I said, the one thing you can't say about them, if they did this motivated by their particular view of religion, you can't say that they didn't have faith, because to do an act like this is something that requires a tremendous amount of faith. And that is, in fact, what caused Sam Harris to write his book, The End of Faith, for that very reason. He started, I think he sort of famously started the treatment of his book on September 12th, because he had the same insight that pretty much everyone had. And so this sort of worry and concern about jihadist Islam, fundamentalist Islam, was very present within the new atheist milieu at the time. And there was a lot of criticism that we were making about Islam. And for most of us, Islam had never really been something that we'd been concerned about or thought that much about. But after 9/11, there was a lot of reason to be concerned about it, and a lot of reason to pay attention about it. And a lot of the atheists that were popular at the time pointed out all the things that it was doing wrong, and especially these fundamentalist versions. And so there was this intense focus on Islam early on that was part and parcel of the new atheist phenomenon, whatever you want to call it. But it was also sort of mixed up with what clearly was Islamophobia that was expressed by especially conservative evangelical Christians at the time, who contextualized the struggle in that way. George W. Bush famously, called it a crusade, right? Which is an awful way of characterizing it, unfortunately. But that's how it was perceived. And so it's a very, very difficult line for us, even now, because Islam is an Abrahamic faith. It is, it should be considered in the same basic category as Christianity and Judaism, because they have so many things in common. And it is not immune from criticism. And yet, because of the problems with Islamophobia, I think we do have to be very careful about exactly how we do it. And I say this to segue into my only complaint about the project was that I got saddled with so many Quran verses. And so they
were random, Zach.
I know it was random.
Every once in a while, I will randomly assign something. Like I assigned randomly, I don't know, 3 LGBT related segments to a lesbian, and so she ran with it. And so it was completely random. I could show you my grease board over here. It is a war room over here of just keeping people in. No one, number 5. Okay, so you would read number 567, but in the video series, it's number 37, right? So I have to keep track of which one is going where in the series, because you might give me your material. Anyway, sorry, I sidetracked you.
No, that's fine. But it was the thing that I balked the most at, sort of internally, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't really have a background with Islam, so I can't speak to it in the same way that I can speak about Christianity. I haven't studied it either, formally or informally. But why? If there's a verse that is presented to me, if I don't at least give it the same sort of consideration that I might give a verse from the Christian New Testament or whatever, then I don't think that's a good thing either. You should feel free to engage with whatever is out there because it's out there. So I did make the decision as I was going through the verses of the Quran that I was definitely going to only ever use the translation that had been recommended to me by a Muslim friend of mine, because I had asked
Yusuf
him.
Ali.
Yusuf Ali, yeah. I'd asked him one time.
I used the King Fahd Saudi Arabian edition, which I understand is very similar to the Yusuf Ali.
I don't really know how to compare, but I knew that this one was the one that was recommended to me. So I said, all right, I'm just going to stick with this one, and I'll read it in English, and I'll just acknowledge every time that this is the translation, because I know I don't know if all Muslims are so picky about this, but I know that some Muslims are very picky about which translation, because well, to be frank, some Christians are picky about their translations too. King James or nothing. But anyway, so that was what I attempted to do, and it was also kind of interesting to me that there were one of the things that I ended up doing, especially with the verses of the Quran, was I was trying to sort of make analogies or make insights in sort of how those sort of concepts and ideas intersected with those that I am familiar with in Christianity. Which is interesting to me, and also not surprising considering that Islam grew out of, in part, Christianity. Has there been any significant interaction or engagement on your part from either Muslim YouTubers or viewers or ex-Muslims, or have you had any significant engagement with that at all?
I'll answer, but I'll take you for a walk, but I'll bring it right back to the question. One of the segments would be that I assigned to you was palm trees and insects can talk, for instance, or something. Yeah. And you would turn, even not ever had never read that before, but applying it to, donkeys and snakes can talk in the Bible. Okay. And then relating it to something you do know. You're a Bible expert, but you relate it to something you do know, you are an expert on. So a lot of people do that. As far as negative or positive criticism, it comes in the form of YouTube comments usually. And we all know what those are predominantly. And, when I first started this channel, I still try to answer everything. And I do it in a much different way now. 80-90% of it's attacks. It's ad hominem, it's name calling, it's non sequiturs. It's just hodgepodge. Every once in a while, I'll get Christian, some sort of Christian, a Muslim. We take the gloves off for every religion in this book. So anything, just the weirdest cult you've never heard of are in here too. But every once in a while, I'll get some good criticism, like, hey, this is what it's not just a cut and paste 15 million Quranic verses that I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna read them all. And I can see that you cut and paste. If you took the time to write an original thought, then I will read it and I will respond to it. But some are good, and I believe that sometimes I say, you've got a point there. I make a habit of, if they make a good point, I let them know they made a good point, and I'm going to look a little further into that. So yeah.
Excellent. Just one more question from me, and then we'll turn over to the audience to see if they have anything for you as well. If you had this to do all over again, if you could rewind time and set up this entire project, knowing everything that you know now about having gone through all this, what would you do differently?
I would take more than 3 weeks or so on the front end, reaching out to the collaborators. I would do it a month or two in advance. I would build up my collaborators first, assign the stuff, and don't even start putting out the videos until I've got a healthy amount of footage to splice together. And because some weeks, like right now, I've got 11 in the can and they're just waiting to go out. They're already produced, but it wasn't always like that at the beginning. I like to put out a video every other day, but there was times there, it's been a week, and my collaborators haven't, they drag their feet. And if you look in, I think I'm at the Faithless Forum, this November in Austin. I'm going to bring the actual book, my working book. It's the book, but it's got all the scribbles in it, and it's got pages loose, and refer to this and dog ears, and I would have it all signed and get a backlog of footage. And that's what I would do different, I would think. So then I don't accidentally, I get in a point where it's been a week I haven't put out a video, and now I'm on the phone and I'm texting people and can you get that footage into me? And I try not to be, a jerk about it. And every once in a while, if you haven't met the deadline, I've tried. Oh, do you need an extension? Can we? And especially someone like Matt Dillahunty, the guy's just crazy busy. It's I'm not going to say, hey, you missed your deadline, buddy. Forget about the footage. I need his footage, right? So I'll extend a deadline, and then it's just getting that backlog of footage so I can keep the videos going out at a reasonable pace.
Fantastic. Let's see, Amanda, I think you had a question that you'd posed in the chat. If you want to go ahead with that.
Yeah, I was just curious to know what's been the response to Atheist Edge in Espanol.
Oh, I'm looking here. Amanda, you guys are lucky to have Amanda. And she's on, look at how like real time she's posting links to everything we're talking about. This is insanity. I wish I had someone that could do that. And I forgot the question now. Okay. There's only, I think there's only one video in there, and it's Shirley Rivera. She is the, help me out, Zach. She's
president of Atheist
de Puerto Rico, right? Yeah. And I guess she's closely tied to this organization as well. I'm guessing.
Well, she's good friends with this organization.
Okay, yeah.
she's also with Atheist Alliance International.
That's right. The Latin American chapter or region. Yeah. So it's just that one interview with her, and it's a really my Spanish is horrible. Even though I lived in Cuba for 3 years and Colombia, and it's a perishable skill, languages. If you're not using it all the time, it's like a bicycle tire with a slow leak. It'll go flat. You got to keep it pumped up.
Yeah.
So there's just one in there in that little playlist. But if you look in the current series, Shirley does do some segments, and it's all in Spanish. And again, in Puerto Rican, Dominican, and Cuban Spanish is not normal Spanish. It is so super rapid fast. So I'm trying to do the subtitles for it. And my job in the Marine Corps was translator, interrogator, cryptanalysis. So I'm used to putting the headphones on and listen and giving a English verbatim transcript on something in Spanish. But usually it's a drug deal. So I'm kind of used to it, which I had that helped me a lot, but it was super fast. And it was like the Zapruder tape. I'm like rewinding, trying to get it just right. But if you read the subtitle, if anyone that speaks Spanish, if you're looking at my horrible attempts at a subtitle while she's talking, it's going to be all wrong. But I think I captured the basic gist.
Awesome. Any other questions, John? Don?
Well, actually, go ahead, John.
So do you have visions for the future? Any bigger, better things you're going for or anything?
As far as the channel, we have not experienced any growth in a year. The show is a little over 4 years old. This last year, we've been sticking right at 75 to 7,800 subscribers, and it's gone up and down. And YouTube has changed its policy a lot as far as, and it culls its they cull their old accounts, like inactive accounts get culled. So we lose 30 subscribers a month just to old dead accounts or robot accounts. So, and then for every 30 we lose, we'll gain 30. So we've been plateaued at 75-ish, 7,500 for a year now. I've come to terms with that. The channel's not going to go. I don't ever see getting 10,000. I don't say that to be humble. I really don't think we'll ever hit 10,000. We're not going to be a cosmic skeptic. We're not going to be an atheist experience. But I'm happy where we are. We've carved our little niche in the community. We have our little mission statement. You know, every atheist YouTube channel, I can put them into about 4 different categories, and we're the category both best suited for a believer to come on and feel comfortable. And that's what I like. I like believers to come on, and even if it's like Zach and I, it turned into a 5 atheists versus 1 Christian. I didn't mean for it to be, because one of the atheists I thought was a Seventh-day Adventist when I invited him, but he's the president of the Seventh-day Adventist Fight Club. He's a former SDA, and he's in Australia. So it turned into a 5 versus 1. But I think Terry came away feeling comfortable. I don't think he felt ganged up on. He was allowed to get out what he wanted, which is what I like. And as far as formats, there's scripted formats, there's completely unscripted, there's live, there's pre-recorded, and every format has its challenges. Our challenge is in the editing room. A live show is fixing glitches in real time, which is a challenge in its own. Every format's got a different challenge. To answer your question, I don't see us growing. I see us staying put, but we're not going anywhere, at least for another, as long as I can do it. And it's just me and Courtney now. At one time we had 5 co-hosts. So Courtney is working on her master's in psychology. She's about to get married in the fall. She's got a lot going on. And that's why you don't see her much in the series as much as you would think, for a co-host to be. She did what she could, and I totally appreciate it, but I'm rowing this boat by myself right now.
Very cool.
I'm glad that you're doing this, and I think it's very important to keep telling the message. But I also remember that I became an atheist in the 60s, and that's like 60 years ago. And I went way past many years now trying to really question whether I was right or not. And I kind of feel that there probably needs to be something somewhere for the people who have progressed beyond questioning and they're ready for the next phase. And along with that, I kind of feel that we're talking to a certain segment of people, but we're really ignoring the kids. And that really came true to me when I was working with Camp Quest. I had no idea that there were kids that were not allowed to go over to other kids' houses to play because their parents didn't go to church. And harassment in school. And 1/3 shot, supporting what you're doing now, we really haven't made many inroads into the Black churches.
Yeah, I want to address a couple things there. I'll start with
What do you think
last
about
thing.
that?
Yeah, as far as diversity, look at these 64 content creators. It is a rainbow. It is the United Colors of Benetton, and I'm so proud of that. A lot of these new ones, Esther, the African humanist, she's a, I want to say Ugandan immigrant. She still has that lovely accent. Oh, just an incredible human being. Maya Atkinson, we've got a lot of diversity in this series. I'm very proud of that. As far as the children, I was looking at my analytics just last week, and the 18 to 25-year-olds, they don't watch my show. It's all, my main demographic is like the 45 to 60, which blew me away. I'm thinking, most YouTubers, look at Cosmic Skeptic. Is that guy even able to drive yet? Some of these guys, I'm sure their demographic looks different, but I appeal to my age, and I thought I was appealing to younger. And a former host of this show, Chris, you guys might have seen him if you watched the channel. He said, I've got a Twitter, Facebook's for fuddy-duddies like us. I need to get a TikTok and do some short clips. So that I'm looking into that. I'm going to try to do TikTok. As far as the YouTube channel itself, it's going to be what it is. Because if you open it up for kids, there's a way to make your channel viewable and your videos viewable to children. But if you do, you open up a huge can of worms, a lot of liability. And I'm a Marine, and we have some saucy language sometimes, and that's a showstopper right there. So I can't direct the YouTube channel for kids, but I can do fun stuff maybe on TikTok, maybe appeal to them. Another thing I'd like to do, what Fellowship of Freethought Dallas is just head and shoulders above any, from what I can see, any other organization in the area, is you're giving back, the outreach, the helping the homeless. I want to start maybe fundraisers, telethon, something. I want to use the channel maybe to do something like that. And that would be, I would love to do that in the future. I've been a member of Metroplex Atheist for 8 years now. And we do roadside cleanup in Bedford, Northwestern Hills. I don't know if we did it this year, but I handed Zach a check for $700 one year to help some underprivileged Camp Quest campers get in. I want that to be a regular thing though too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all really good stuff. Somebody, I think it was actually Alex Jules, suggested to me that I do something similar on TikTok. And I said, "Wait, how long are the TikTok videos now?
A minute.
Have you ever heard me talk? Have you ever heard me talk about anything for less than a minute? I don't think that's going to fly. But yeah, it's a really interesting question, I guess. How, because YouTube, I mean, it seems like the hot new thing. And certainly, so I've got a son who's 9 years old. He loves YouTube, but he doesn't really use YouTube to learn things. He watches, video game mashups and, meme fests and things like that. So it's just sort of mindless entertainment for him. So that's a real interesting question, how to bring the young people into this, talking about this, and presumably they still do need to talk about this, at least in certain parts of the country, like Texas, which is why we have things like Camp West Texas, etc. So,
speaking of, my girls have already packed for it. It's a month away, and they've already got their chests, their Foot Lockers packed. I'm like, girls, awesome. You're going to be pulling all that back out just to make sure it's only, way too soon.
Yeah, well, I'll be a counselor this year. Actually, this is my first time in a while. I'll be a counselor. Yeah, so looking forward to it myself.
I think the Black church presents a special challenge because in the Black community, if you look, all the marches and everything came out of the church, and it's much more than a religion. It is. I saw a presentation the other day. It said in the beginning there was a Black community, and there was a Black church, and the Black church was the Black community. And when you talk about somebody leaving that organization, you're not just leaving a religion, you're leaving a community and everything you stand for. And that is a tough hill to get over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much like, I think, what we were mentioning earlier on with Mormons leaving that community, because because of the fact that they have so isolated themselves or been isolated by society, they've had to rely on their own community and the systems that they've created just to survive. That's not an easy thing to walk away from. And that definitely is the case with the Black church. It provides just a tremendous amount of basic support, and so it's not an easy thing to turn your back on that, even if you might intellectually disagree with some of the things that are being taught. It's a real challenge.
And what are you walking toward?
Mm-hmm.
Where is there a robust community like that you really will grab you and give you all the things you got from your church?
And what is your sense, Jim, speaking as someone with a YouTube channel? So you've brought together all these diverse voices into this project. Is there aside from them, are there established YouTube channels that also exist that represent all those sort of diverse voices? Are there Black atheist YouTube channels or ex-Muslim YouTube channels? Do those exist out there? for people
Oh,
to find?
sure. The first one comes to mind is Dragnot Silvis. I bet you guys are familiar with him. He's always got a lab coat on and goggles when he's talking. He works in a lab. He's got some sort of chemistry, science background. But that's one that comes to mind. There's quite a few there, which is great. They're popping up. Yeah, a couple years ago you wouldn't have seen that. So I think that's progress.
Yeah. And what about locally? So you're a YouTuber based in Dallas Fort Worth. I think you mentioned a couple others that are based here. What does the landscape look like in the Dallas Fort Worth area for people interested in putting content out?
If atheist YouTubing were Islam, Dallas Fort Worth would be Mecca, Saudi Arabia.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And I'm talking worldwide. There's a huge pocket in Australia, huge pocket in UK. That's why when I premiere a video, I'm not I'm not American centric when I pick the time to premiere the video. Sometimes it'll be a midnight premiere and everyone's like, why are you premiering it so late? 40% of my viewership is overseas, Hong Kong, Europe, Australia, and other places. But yeah, 40% is non-US. So I have to premiere the videos for them, that way. I forgot your question now. Oh, yeah. So Dallas Fort Worth, I mean, the biggest, the only thing that could maybe rival it is the Minnesota area. I think there's a huge hotbed in the Minnesota area, from what I can see. But everyone wants, there's a reason why the conventions are, the Freethought festivals are in Nacogdoches, and the Atheist Experience in Austin, and Faithless Forum, and all the big conventions in American Atheists. They try to stay as close to Texas as they can because they know it's going to be a lot of Texans going to it. That Arizona might be as far away as they get, but they're going to want to stay Oklahoma City or closer when they do their conferences. Well, not to mention they're based here too. Everything's based here. I mean, the biggest YouTubers that you can think of live either 3 hours north of us or 3 hours south of us or right here. I don't know why, but I won the lottery. Somehow when I started this channel would still be under 1,000 subscribers. If it weren't for the fact that pre-COVID, we would set up the recording studio. And when we do a recording session, it's 12 hours long. And we film enough footage in one day to last the entire month. We cut it up, edit it. So it's a process, and there's a lot of prep work. And then we'll be filming something. I'll look over on the couch and Matt Delhoney and Arn Raw are on my couch, sipping a drink, waiting to go on next. You don't get to do that if you live in, Perth, Australia.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, those are pretty outsized personalities, certainly within this community.
I think I grew up in a small town, actually out in the farm in the rural area. And you talk about the difficulty of leaving the Black church. I think you have the same problem with leaving a church in a small community too. You have decided that there is no God, but your wife just loves being on the hospital visitation team for the old folks in the hospital. Your kids love the baseball team. You even like going out, building houses, Habitat for Humanity, things like that, your church sponsors. Are you going to say, nope, we're not going to do any of that more stuff? No more of that stuff. We're done with that. We're going to be all by ourselves here. There are no alternatives.
Yeah, precious few. That's for sure.
Anthony Magnabosco, Street Epistemology. Where's he? San Antonio. He does the habit. He builds wheelchair ramps on the weekends when he's not on college campuses talking to people about their most basic fundamental beliefs.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. Also, his kids went to Camp Quest, Texas.
The very first year when my girls were brand new, wet behind the ear campers, one of my daughters and his daughter were cabin in the same cabin. That was pretty cool. I think that's how I met Anthony.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any final questions for Jim before we wrap up here?
I got a question, and it may not be a quick one. Unfortunately. But I've got a background in video production. I've been thinking about doing a YouTube channel for a long time. That part, I understand video. I'm still relatively at least new to the Freethought community. I was a progressive Christian. I was a Unitarian, many different things over the years. In my youth, I was, fundamentalist Baptist. What would you recommend to somebody trying to get started with, you having worked with all these other creators? What's missing? What, other than the technical side, what would you recommend?
I'm a cradle atheist. I've never prayed once in my life. I just don't know what it's like to be on the other side. And that's a huge disadvantage as an atheist YouTuber. I can't speak from both sides of it. You've got that, you got the audiovisual, you've got a foot in the door, and come on in and get in touch with me afterwards. I've got a list of all the mistakes I made in the first year, all 4 years, and I can give you all my list of mistakes too, so you don't repeat them. And what's missing? There are no real vacuums, but what's hot right now is deconversion stories. Neil, the 604 Atheist, is growing leaps and bounds. He's going to be speaking at Faithless Forum in November. The people love the deconversion stories because they can, I guess, relate to them in some form or fashion. The how literally difficult it is to come out of that, just like you guys were talking about. It's just that mental switch, you could base an entire YouTube channel on that, and it's already being done. But more the merrier. You get some. What I do see is someone like Sasha Sagan, Carl Sagan's daughter. We got her for the Atheist and Christian Book Club. We did an interview with her. We've had Frank Turek in studio. I don't know how lucky we get. I mean, we've had some John Loftus in studio. It's just incredible. But as soon as Sasha came on the show, and then I see her making the rounds, every other atheist YouTuber sees that, and then boom, 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 just like which isn't a bad thing. Like Tobin Teppelman, no one knew who this guy was, but he speaks with such passion, and his segments, they're not heavily scripted. They're 3 minutes long, but he speaks with passion, and I think that really pumps the community up. And that kid is going somewhere. He's got a tiny little channel right now, but he's set for success now, I believe, because he's been, as soon as he started doing segments on this series, now I see him popping up. He's playing guitar over on this channel. He's over here doing an interview, how he lost his faith, and it's a great community. And I can't stress it enough. Just like Thomas Westbrook, who I still think he's in the Texas area. Holy Kool-Aid, a rising tide raises all the boats. And when he said that, he also said, normalize your audio at +3. Brian, you might understand what I'm saying, but about he helped me with some technical aspects about how to get my sound good, and don't let that background. Early on, my background music was really overwhelming the dialogue, things like that too. He was a huge help at the beginning.
Okay.
But yeah, get in touch with me after this, and I will shoot you everything I know.
Oh, I would love to. Thank you.
Great. And where can people get in touch with you, Jim? Where can they find you and your stuff?
We're, of course, YouTube, Atheist Edge. Just search for that, and when you type it out, you'll get Atheist Experience first. But we're the one right under that. And then we post on Twitter every day, Instagram every day, and those are the three main ones. As far as getting in touch with us, we get between 300 and 800 comments a month on the YouTube channel. When Courtney's not busy, she helps me out, and I got someone else helping me. I got a dedicated person just doing the Facebook, so luckily I don't even have to touch the Facebook anymore. As I try to answer every comment on YouTube. If you want to get in touch with me, that's the best way. Just leave a comment on YouTube. I'll probably see it, or leave a instant message on the Atheist Edge Facebook page. But this is the book we were talking about, and that's what I based the series on. 666 things it's pulling back the green curtain. 666 things your religious leaders never taught you. And then this book, it's riddled with typos. There's 31 typos that I could find so far. It's self-published. This one finally got conscripted. I think that's the word, consigned. with Barnes and Noble. So I finally saw this one on the shelves. So you can get it
Really?
on Barnes and Noble, but yet Amazon, it's on Amazon for like $11 or whatever. But as far as that goes, and once Courtney gets that master's degree, she's going to be. We're already setting up for a huge recurring segment on our show because she's going to be a sex therapist. So it's going to be sex taboos, mores in religion, and as you're coming out and deconverting, how to not think of sex as dirty now, and how the whole idea of sex changes as a non-believer.
Great. Well, we'll look forward to that. That'll be a really interesting series. All right, Jim. Well, thank you so much for your time here, for sharing with us, talking about the project and about being a YouTuber and what all that's like, and all the different challenges and tribulations and successes as well that you've had.
Thanks so much, guys, for having me on, and special thanks, Zach, for those segments. That really just made the series. I mean that.
Absolutely.
I'm not peeing on your leg there. I'm serious.
I appreciate it. It was a total pleasure. Happy to do it. All right. And we'll thank you. Thanks for the rest of us, the rest of you in the audience for joining us here at at our May gathering. And we look forward to seeing you at future events this month. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Jim.